Hey there, folks! Today, we're diving into the fascinating world of South Carolina, United States of America. South Carolina is a state in the southeastern region of the United States, known for its rich history, beautiful beaches, and vibrant culture. Let's start with a brief overview of South Carolina's history. The state was founded in 1729 and has a long and complex history, including the American Revolution, the Civil War, and the Civil Rights Movement. Moving on to geography, South Carolina is bordered by North Carolina to the north, the Atlantic Ocean to the east, Georgia to the south, and the Savannah River to the west. It's a diverse state with a mix of coastal plains, mountains, and sandy beaches. Now, let's talk about demographics. South Carolina is home to a diverse population with a mix of African Americans, Caucasians, Hispanics, and other ethnic groups. Moving on to the economy, South Carolina is known for its thriving industries, including agriculture, manufacturing, and tourism. Transportation and infrastructure are crucial to the state's economy, with major highways, airports, and seaports connecting South Carolina to the rest of the country and the world. Education is another important aspect of South Carolina. The state has a strong public education system, as well as several renowned universities and colleges. Healthcare is also a vital part of South Carolina's infrastructure, with a mix of public and private hospitals and clinics. Media, government, and politics are also significant aspects of South Carolina's culture. The state has a rich media landscape, and its government is based on the United States Constitution. And finally, South Carolina's culture is a melting pot of influences, from its rich history to its vibrant art scene and delicious cuisine. Thank you for joining me on this journey through South Carolina. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to follow and subscribe for more exciting content. Next to follow the full episode. South Carolina, Carolina, is a state in the southeastern region of the United States. It borders North Carolina to the north and northeast, the Atlantic Ocean to the southeast, and Georgia to the west and south across the Savannah River. Along with North Carolina, it makes up the Carolinas region of the East Coast. South Carolina is the 40th largest and 23rd most populous U.S. state with a recorded population of 5,118,425, according to the 2020 census. In 2019, its GDP was $213.45 billion. South Carolina is composed of 46 counties. The capital is Columbia with a population of 136,632 in 2020, while its most populous city is Charleston with a 2020 population of 150,227. The Greenville-Spartanburg-Anderson SC Combined Statistical Area is the most populous combined metropolitan area in the state, with an estimated 2023 population of 1,590,636. South Carolina was named in honor of King Charles I of England, who first formed the English colony, with Carolus being Latin for Charles. In 1712, the province of South Carolina was formed. One of the original 13 colonies, South Carolina became a royal colony in 1719. During the American Revolutionary War, South Carolina was the site of major activity among the American colonies. With more than 200 battles and skirmishes fought within the state, South Carolina became the 8th state to ratify the U.S. Constitution on May 23, 1788. A slave state, it was the first state to vote in favor of secession from the Union on December 20, 1860. After the Civil War ended, the state was readmitted to the Union on July 9, 1868. During the early to mid-20th century, the state started to see economic progress as many textile mills and factories were built across the state. The civil rights movement of the mid-20th century helped end segregation and legal discrimination policies within the state. Economic diversification in South Carolina continued to pick up speed during and in the ensuing decades after World War II. In the early 21st century, South Carolina's economy is based on industries such as aerospace, agribusiness, automotive manufacturing, and tourism. Within South Carolina from east to west are three main geographic regions: the Atlantic Coastal Plain, the Piedmont, and the Blue Ridge Mountains in the northwestern corner of upstate South Carolina. South Carolina has primarily a humid subtropical climate, with hot, humid summers and mild winters. Areas in the upstate have a subtropical highland climate. Along South Carolina's eastern coastal plain are many salt marshes and estuaries. South Carolina's southeastern low country contains portions of the Sea Islands, a chain of barrier islands along the Atlantic Ocean. History. Top left, the shores of Florida and the future. Carolina explored in 1500 and showed in 1502 on the Continental Planisphere. There is evidence of human activities in the area dating to about 50,000 years ago. At the time Europeans arrived, marking the end pre-Columbian era around 1600, there were many separate Native American tribes, the largest being the Cherokee and the Catawba, with a total population being up to 20,000. Up the rivers of the eastern coastal plain lived about a dozen tribes of Shuam background. Along the Savannah River were the Appalachee, Yuchi, and the Yamasee. Further west were the Cherokee, and along the Catawba River, the Catawba. These tribes were village dwellers, relying on agriculture as their primary food source. The Cherokee lived in wattle and daub houses made with wood and clay, roofed with wood or thatched grass. About a dozen or more separate small tribes summered on the coast harvesting oysters and fish, and cultivating corn, peas, and beans. Traveling inland as much as 50 miles, 80 kilometers, mostly by canoe, they wintered on the coastal plain, hunting deer and gathering nuts and fruit. The names of these tribes survive in place names like Edisto Island, Kiowa Island, and the Ashpoo River. Exploration, main articles, Spanish Florida and French Florida. Map of French Florida, which included modern-day South Carolina. The Spanish were the first Europeans in the area. From June 24th to July 14th, 1521, they explored the land around Winya Bay. On October 8, 1526, they founded San Miguel de Galdape, near present-day Georgetown, South Carolina. It was the first European settlement in what is now the contiguous United States. Established with 500 settlers, it was abandoned 8 months later by 150 survivors. In 1540, Hernando de Soto explored the region and the main town of Cofitashiqui, where he captured the queen of the Muskogee, and the Shillak, Cherokee, who had welcomed him. In 1562, French Huguenots established a settlement at what is now the Charles-Fort-Sana, Elena archaeological site on Paris Island. Many of these settlers preferred a natural life far from civilization and the atrocities of the wars of religion. The garrison lacked supplies, however, and the soldiers, as in the France Antarctique, soon ran away. The French returned 2 years later, but settled in present-day Florida rather than South Carolina. Colonization. Main articles: Carolina, Province of Carolina, and Province of South Carolina. See also Mississippian Shatter Zone. The Carolina Colony Grants of 1663 and 1665. 60 years later, in 1629, King Charles I of England established the province of Carolina, an area covering what is now South and North Carolina, Georgia, and Tennessee. Carolina was granted to Sir Robert Heath, who intended to allow French Huguenots to settle there. However, King Charles refused to grant permission to settle to anyone who was not a member of the Anglican Church, leading to the failure of the colony. In 1663, King Charles II created the province of Carolina by granting the same land to 8 lords, proprietors in return for their financial and political assistance in restoring him to the throne in 1660. Anthony Ashley Cooper, one of the Lord Proprietors, planned the grand model for the province of Carolina and wrote the fundamental constitutions of Carolina, which laid the basis for the future colony. His utopia was inspired by John Locke, an English philosopher and physician, widely regarded as one of the most influential of Enlightenment thinkers and commonly known as the father of liberalism. The Carolina slave trade, which included both trading and direct raids by colonists, 109 was the largest among the British colonies in North America. 65. Between 1670 and 1715, between 24,000 and 51,000 captive Native Americans were exported from South Carolina, more than the number of Africans imported to the colonies of the future United States during the same period. 237 additional enslaved Native Americans were exported from South Carolina to other U.S. colonies. The historian Alan Gallay says, "The trade in Indian slaves was at the center of the English Empire's development in the American South. The trade in Indian slaves was the most important factor affecting the South in the period 1670 to 1715. In the 1670s, English planters from Barbados established themselves near what is now Charleston. Settlers from all over Europe built rice plantations in the South Carolina Low Country, east of the Atlantic seaboard fall line. Plantation labor was done by African slaves, who formed the majority of the population by 1720. Another cash crop was the indigo plant, a plant source of blue dye, developed by Eliza Lucas. Meanwhile, upstate South Carolina, west of the fall line, was settled by small farmers and traders, who, due to resource competition, fought a number of wars with confederated Native American tribes westward. Colonists overthrew the proprietors' rule, seeking more direct representation. In 1712, the former province of Carolina split into North and South Carolina. In 1719, South Carolina was officially made a royal colony. South Carolina prospered from the fertility of the low country and the harbors, such as at Charleston. It allowed religious toleration, encouraging settlement, and trade in deerskin, lumber, and beef thrived. Rice cultivation was developed on a large scale on the back of slave labor. By the second half of the 1700s, South Carolina was one of the richest of the 13 colonies. The American Revolution. South Carolina in the American Revolution and Southern Theater of the American Revolutionary War. A $20 banknote issued by South Carolina in 1777 with the inscription, South Carolina. This bill entitles the bearer to $20 or 32 pounds 10 shillings current money of the state pursuant to an ordinance of the General Assembly, passed the 14th day of February 1777. Denomination stated as $20 and L32.10. Within emblem, We be I libertas ebi patria. Verso, XX dollars. Death to counterfeit. L, 32 to 10 to 0. A $20 banknote issued by South Carolina in 1777. On March 26, 1776, the colony adopted the Constitution of South Carolina, electing John Rutledge as the state's first president. In February 1778, South Carolina became the first state to ratify the Articles of Confederation, the initial governing document of the United States, and in May 1788, South Carolina ratified the United States Constitution, becoming the 8th state to enter the Union. During the American Revolutionary War 1775-1783, about a third of combat action took place in South Carolina, more than any other state. Inhabitants of the state endured being invaded by British forces and an ongoing civil war between loyalists and partisans that devastated the backcountry. It is estimated 25,000 slaves, 30% of those in South Carolina, fled, migrated, or died during the war. Main article, Antebellum South Carolina. Milford Plantation, built 1839-41, is an example of Greek Revival architecture. America's first census in 1790 put the state's population at nearly 250,000. By the 1800 census, the population had increased 38% to nearly 340,000, of which 146,000 were slaves. At that time, South Carolina had the largest population of Jews in the 16 states of the United States, mostly based in Savannah and Charleston, the latter being the country's 5th largest city. In the antebellum period, before the Civil War, the state's economy and population grew. Cotton became an important crop after the invention of the cotton gin. While nominally democratic, from 1790 until 1865, wealthy male landowners were in control of South Carolina. For example, a man was not eligible to sit in the State House of Representatives unless he possessed an estate of 500 acres of land and 10 Negroes or at least 150 pounds sterling. Columbia, the new state capital, was founded in the center of the state, and the state legislature first met there in 1790. The town grew after it was connected to Charleston by the Santee Canal in 1800, one of the first canals in the United States. As dissatisfaction of the planters' ruling class with the federal government grew, in the 1820s, John C. Calhoun became a leading proponent of states' rights, limited government, nullification of the U.S. Constitution, and free trade. In 1832, the Ordinance of Nullification declared federal tariff laws unconstitutional and not to be enforced in the state, leading to the nullification crisis. The federal force bill was enacted to use whatever military force necessary to enforce federal law in the state, bringing South Carolina back into line. An 1831 House report from the Committee on Military Affairs noted that before the commencement of the war with Great Britain, and for a long time afterwards, the state of South Carolina was almost destitute of any of the means of military protection, excepting as such could be furnished by our own resources. In the harbor of Charleston alone were there any forts, and these were in so feeble a condition that at a period when a British squadron was engaged in sounding the depth of water off the bar, and its commander apparently meditating an attack upon the forts, the quantity of gunpowder in the harbor belonging to the United States was not more than sufficient to have enabled the garrison to fire a single round. In the United States presidential election of 1860, voting was sharply divided, with the South voting for the Southern Democrats and the North for Abraham Lincoln's Republican Party. Lincoln was anti-slavery, did not acknowledge the right to secession, and would not yield federal property in Southern states. Southern secessionists believed Lincoln's election meant long-term doom for their slavery-based agrarian economy and social system. Lincoln was elected president on November 6, 1860. The State House of Representatives 3 days later passed a resolution to call the election of Abraham Lincoln as U.S. president a hostile act, and within weeks South Carolina became the first state to secede. American Civil War 1861 to 1865. Main articles: Ordinance of Secession, Confederate States of America, and South Carolina in the American Civil War. Charleston after the end of the American Civil War, 1865. On April 12, 1861, Confederate batteries began shelling the Union Fort Sumter in Charleston Harbor, and the American Civil War began. In November of that year, the Union attacked Port Royal Sound and soon occupied Beaufort County and the neighboring Sea Islands. For the rest of the war, this area served as a Union base and staging point for other operations. Whites abandoned their plantations, leaving behind about 10,000 enslaved people. Several Northern charities partnered with the federal government to help these people run the cotton farms, themselves under the Port Royal experiment. Workers were paid by the pound harvested, and thus became the first enslaved people freed by the Union forces to earn wages. Although the state was not a major battleground, the war ruined the state's economy. More than 60,000 soldiers from South Carolina served in the war, with the state losing an estimated 18,000 troops. Though no regiments of Southern Unionists were formed in South Carolina due to a smaller Unionist presence, the upstate region of the state would be a haven for Confederate Army deserters and resistors, as they used the upstate topography and traditional community relations to resist service in the Confederate ranks. At the end of the war in early 1865, the troops of General William Tecumseh Sherman marched across the state, devastating plantations and most of Columbia. South Carolina would be readmitted to the Union on July 9, 1868. Reconstruction 1865 to 1877. Joseph Rainey was the first black person to serve in the U.S. House of Representatives. He represented SC's 1st Congressional District. In Texas versus White, 1869, the Supreme Court ruled the ordinances of secession, including that of South Carolina, were invalid, and thus those states had never left the Union. However, South Carolina did not regain representation in Congress until that date. Until the 1868 presidential election, South Carolina's legislature, not the voters, chose the state's electors for the presidential election. South Carolina was the last state to choose its electors in this manner. During Reconstruction, South Carolina maintained a majority black government, which lasted until approximately 1876, when Democrats and former Confederates committed voter fraud to regain power. On October 19th, General Amos T. Ackerman, hundreds of Klansmen were arrested while 2,000 Klansmen fled the state. This was done to suppress Klan violence against African American and white voters in the South. In the mid to late 1870s, white Democrats used paramilitary groups such as the Red Shirts to intimidate and terrorize black voters. They regained political control of the state under conservative white Redeemers and pro-business Bourbon Democrats. In 1877, the federal government withdrew its troops as part of the Compromise of 1877 that ended Reconstruction. Populist and agrarian movements. The state became a hotbed of racial and economic tensions during the populist and agrarian movements of the 1890s. A Republican populist biracial coalition took power away from white Democrats temporarily. To prevent that from happening again, Democrats gained passage of a new constitution in 1895, which effectively disenfranchised almost all blacks and many poor whites by new requirements for poll taxes, residency, and literacy tests that dramatically reduced the voter rolls. By 1896, only 5,500 black voters remained on the voter registration rolls, although they constituted a majority of the state's population. The 1900 census demonstrated the extent of disenfranchisement. The 782,509 African American citizens comprised more than 58% of the state's population, but they were essentially without any political representation in the Jim Crow society. The 1895 Constitution overturned local representative government, reducing the role of the counties to agents of state government, effectively ruled by the General Assembly through the legislative delegations for each county. As each county had one state senator, that person had considerable power. The counties lacked representative government until Home Rule was passed in 1975. Governor Pitchfork Ben Tillman, a populist, led the effort to disenfranchise the blacks and poor whites, although he controlled Democratic state politics from the 1890s to 1910. With a base among poor white farmers. During the Constitutional Convention in 1895, he supported another man's proposal that the state adopt a one-drop rule, as well as prohibit marriage between whites and anyone with any known African ancestry. Some members of the convention realized prominent white families with some African ancestry could be affected by such legislation. In terms similar to a debate in Virginia in 1853 on a similar proposal, which was dropped, George Dionysius Tillman said in opposition, "If the law is made as it now stands, respectable families in Aiken, Barnwell, Colleton, and Orangeburg will be denied the right to intermarry among people with whom they are now associated and identified. At least 100 families would be affected to my knowledge. They have sent good soldiers to the Confederate Army and are now landowners and taxpayers. Those men serve creditably, and it would be unjust and disgraceful to embarrass them in this way. It is a scientific fact that there is not one full-blooded Caucasian on the floor of this convention. Every member has in him a certain mixture of colored blood. The pure-blooded white has needed and received a certain infusion of darker blood to give him readiness and purpose. It would be a cruel injustice adopted a one-drop law in 1924, forgetting that their state had many people of mixed ancestry among those who identified as white. 20th century. Children worker C. 1912. Some children who worked in South Carolina textile mills went to school half a day and worked before and after school in 8 or 9 hours on Saturday. Early in the 20th century, South Carolina developed a thriving textile industry. The state also converted its main agricultural base from cotton to more profitable crops. It would attract large military bases during World War I, through its majority Democratic congressional delegation, part of the one-party Solid South following disfranchisement of blacks. In the late 19th century, South Carolina would implement Jim Crow laws, which enforced racial segregation policies until the 1960s. During the early to mid part of the 20th century, millions of African Americans left South Carolina and other southern states for jobs, opportunities, and relative freedom in U.S. cities outside the former Confederate states. In total, from 1910 to 1970, 6.5 million blacks left the South in the Great Migration. By 1930, South Carolina had a white majority population for the first time since 1708. South Carolina was one of several states that initially rejected the 19th Amendment 1920, giving women the right to vote. The South Carolina legislature later ratified the amendment on July 1, 1969. See also, South Carolina and the Civil Rights Movement. The struggle of the Civil Rights Movement took place in South Carolina, as they did in other southern states and elsewhere within the country. South Carolina would experience a much less violent movement than other Deep South states. This tranquil transition from a Jim Crow society occurred because the state's white and black leaders were willing to accept slow change, rather than being utterly unwilling to accept change at all. Other South Carolina political figures, like Sen. Strom Thurmond, on the other hand, were among the nation's most radical and effective opponents of social equality and integration. During the mid to late 20th century, South Carolina started to see economic progress, first in the textile industry and then in manufacturing. Tourism also started to form into a major industry within the state during the 20th century, especially in areas such as Myrtle Beach and Charleston. 21st century, North Ocean Boulevard in Myrtle Beach, 2010. As the 21st century progresses, South Carolina has attracted new business by having a 5% corporate income tax rate, no state property tax, no local income tax, no inventory tax, no sales tax on manufacturing equipment, industrial power or materials for finished products, no wholesale tax, and no unitary tax on worldwide profits. South Carolina was one of the first states to stop paying for early elective deliveries of babies under either Medicaid and private insurance. The term early elective is defined as a labor induction or cesarean section between 37 and 39 weeks. Region's main article: Geographical regions of South Carolina. The state can be divided into 3 natural geographic areas, which then can be subdivided into 5 distinct cultural regions. The natural environment is divided from east to west by the Atlantic coastal plain, the Piedmont, and the Blue Ridge Mountains. Culturally, the coastal plain is split into the Low Country and the PD region. While the upper Piedmont region is referred to as the Piedmont, and the lower Piedmont region is referred to as the Midlands. The area surrounding the Blue Ridge Mountains is known as the Upstate. The Atlantic coastal plain makes up 2/3 of the state. Its eastern border is the Sea Islands, a chain of tidal and barrier islands. The border between the Low Country and the Upcountry is defined by the Atlantic seaboard fall line, which marks the limit of navigable rivers. 6.12% is water. The geographical regions of South Carolina refers to the 3 major geographical regions of South Carolina: the Appalachian Mountains in the west, the central Piedmont region, and the eastern Atlantic coastal plain. The largest region in the state is the Piedmont, located between the mountains and the Carolina Sandhills, while the smallest region in the state is the mountains, which are part of the Blue Ridge Mountains. The Sea Islands are a chain of over 100 tidal and barrier islands on the Atlantic Ocean coast of the southeastern United States, between the mouths of the Santee and St. Johns rivers along South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. The largest is Johns Island, South Carolina. Sapelo Island is home to the Gullah people. All the islands are acutely threatened by sea level rise due to climate change. Barrier islands are a coastal landform, a type of dune system and sand island, where an area of sand has been formed by wave and tidal action parallel to the mainland coast. They usually occur in chains, consisting of anything from a few islands to more than a dozen. Citation needed. They are subject to change during storms and other action, but absorb energy and protect the coastlines and create areas of protected waters where wetlands may flourish. A barrier chain may extend for hundreds of kilometers, with islands periodically separated by tidal inlets. The longest barrier island in the world is Padre Island of Texas, United States, at 113 miles, 182 kilometers long. Sometimes an important inlet may close permanently, transforming an island into a peninsula, thus creating a barrier peninsula, often including a beach, barrier beach. Numerous theories have been given to explain their formation. A human-made offshore structure constructed parallel to the shore is called a breakwater. In terms of coastal morphodynamics, it acts similarly to a naturally occurring barrier island by dissipating and reducing the energy of the waves and currents striking the coast. Hence, it is an important aspect of coastal engineering. Atlantic Coastal Plain. Main article, South Carolina Low Country. The Atlantic Coastal Plain consists of sediment and sedimentary rocks that range in age from Cretaceous to present. The terrain is relatively flat, and the soil is composed predominantly of sand, silt, and clay. Areas with better drainage make excellent farmland, though some land is swampy. An unusual feature of the coastal plain is a large number of low-relief topographic depressions named Carolina Bays. The bays tend to be oval, lining up in a northwest to southeast orientation. The eastern portion of the coastal plain contains many salt marshes and estuaries, as well as natural ports such as Georgetown and Charleston. The natural areas of the coastal plain are part of the Middle Atlantic Coastal Forest ecoregion. The Sandhills or Carolina Sandhills is a 10 to 35 mi, 16 to 56 kilometers wide region within the Atlantic Coastal Plain province, along the inland margin of this province. The Carolina Sandhills are interpreted as aeolian windblown sand sheets and dunes that were mobilized episodically from approximately 75,000 to 6,000 years ago. Most of the published luminescence ages from the sand are coincident with the last glaciation, a time when the southeastern United States was characterized by colder air temperatures and stronger winds. Piedmont. Much of Piedmont consists of Paleozoic metamorphic and igneous rocks, and the landscape has relatively low relief. Due to the changing economics of farming, much of the land is now reforested in loblolly pine for the lumber industry. These forests are part of the Southeastern Mixed Forest ecoregion. At the southeastern edge of Piedmont is the fall line, where rivers drop to the coastal plain. The fall line was an important early source of water power. Mills built to this resource encouraged the growth of several cities, including the capital, Columbia. The larger rivers are navigable up to the fall line, providing a trade route for mill towns. The northwestern part of Piedmont is also known as the foothills. The Cherokee Parkway is a scenic driving route through this area. This is where Table Rock State Park is located. Blue Ridge, pinnacle mountain view from Caesar's Head. The Blue Ridge consists primarily of Precambrian metamorphic rocks, and the landscape has relatively high relief. The Blue Ridge region contains an escarpment of the Blue Ridge Mountains that continues into North Carolina and Georgia as part of the Southern Appalachian Mountains. Sassafras Mountain, South Carolina's highest point at 3,560 feet, 1,090 meters, is in this area. Also in this area is Caesar's Head State Park. The environment here is that of the Appalachian Blue Ridge Forest ecoregion. The Chattooga River on the border between South Carolina and Georgia is a favorite whitewater rafting destination. Lakes. Main article, List of lakes in South Carolina. Lake Hartwell includes parts of the Savannah, Tougaloo, and Seneca rivers. South Carolina has several major lakes covering over 683 square miles, 1,770 square kilometers. All major lakes in South Carolina are human-made. The following are the lakes listed by size. Lake Marion is a large man-made lake in central South Carolina. It has a 315-mile, 507 kilometer shoreline and covers nearly 110,000 acres, 450 square kilometers, or 173.7 square miles of rolling farmlands, former marshes, and river valley landscape. With territory spanning 5 counties, the lake is referred to as South Carolina's Inland Sea. The Santee River was dammed in the 1940s to supply hydroelectric power as part of the rural electrification efforts initiated under President Franklin D. Roosevelt's New Deal during the Great Depression. This created Lake Marion, one of the 50 largest lakes in the United States, whether natural or man-made reservoirs. At current capacity, it is only about a third of the area of what, if filled to capacity, would be the 15th largest lake in the U.S. Lake Strom-Thurmond, officially designated J. Strom-Thurmond Reservoir at the federal level, and Clarks Hill Lake by the state of Georgia, is a man-made reservoir at the border between the U.S. states of Georgia and South Carolina in the Savannah. Lake Moultrie is a large man-made lake in South Carolina. The third largest lake in the state, it provides a wide variety of recreational opportunities, including fishing. Lake Hartwell is a man-made reservoir bordering Georgia and South Carolina and encompassing parts of the Savannah, Tougaloo, and Seneca rivers. Lake Hartwell is one of the largest recreation lakes in the southeastern United States. It was created by the construction of the Hartwell Dam, completed in 1962, and located on the Savannah River 7 miles, 11 kilometers, below the point where the Tougaloo and Seneca rivers join to form the Savannah. Extending 49 miles, 79 kilometers up to Tougaloo and 45 miles, 72 kilometers up to Seneca at normal pool elevation. The lake comprises nearly 56,000 acres, 230 square kilometers, of water with a shoreline of 962 miles, 1,540. The entire Hartwell Reservoir project contains 76,450 acres, 309.4 square kilometers of land and water. Interstate Highway 85 bisects Lake Hartwell, making the area easily accessible to visitors. Lake Murray is a reservoir in the U.S. state of South Carolina. It is approximately 50,000 acres, 20,000 hectares in size, and has roughly 650 miles, 1,050 kilometers of shoreline. It was impounded in the late 1920s to provide hydroelectric power to the state of South Carolina. Lake Murray is fed by the Saluda River, which flows from upstate South Carolina near the North Carolina state line. The Saluda Dam, officially the Dare Shoals Dam, was an engineering feat at the time of its construction. The dam, using the native red clay soil and bedrock, was the largest earthen dam in the world when it was completed in 1930. Lake Murray itself is named after the project's chief engineer, William S. Murray. The Saluda Dam is approximately 1.5 miles, 2.4 kilometers, long and 220 feet, 67 meters high. Lake Murray is 41 miles, 66 kilometers long, and 14 miles, 23 kilometers wide at its widest point. Also, Dare Island State Recreation Area, located in the western part of the lake, provides multiple activities all focused on the lake. Richard B. Russell Lake, known to locals as simply Lake Russell, is a reservoir created by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers by construction of Richard B. Russell Dam on the Savannah River bordering Elbert County, Georgia, and Abbeville and Anderson counties in South Carolina. The lake impounds primarily the Savannah River, but also includes Beaver Dam Creek on the Georgia side and Rocky River on the South Carolina side. Filling of the lake began in October 1983 and was completed in December 1984 for a full pool. Elevation of 475 feet, 145 meters. Lake levels do not change much because the lake is designed to operate within 5 feet, 1.5 meters of full pool compared to Hartwell and Thurmond, whose 35 feet, 11 meters, and 18 feet, 5.5 meters of conservation storage respectively causes their levels to change more dramatically. This causes the lake to always look full. Named for U.S. Senator Richard Brevard Russell, Jr., the lake consists of 26,650 acres, 108 square kilometers of water and 540 miles, 870 kilometers. Unlike its neighbors Lake Hartwell to the north and Lake Strom-Thurmond to the south, federal regulations prohibit private use of the public lands surrounding Lake Russell. Lake Keowee is a man-made reservoir in the United States in the state of South Carolina. It was developed to serve the needs of power utility Duke Energy and public recreational purposes. It is approximately 26 miles 42 kilometers long, 3 miles 4.8 kilometers wide, with an average depth of 54 feet 16 meters, and a shoreline measured at 300 miles 480 kilometers in total, and is approximately 800 feet 240 meters above sea level. The massive demolition and building project began in 1971 with the construction of 2 large dams, Keowee Dam and Little River Dam, built on the rivers of the same names. The project covered 18,372 acres, 74.35 square kilometers. The lake collects or impounds waters from the Keowee River and the Little River and others. The outflows below the respective dams join to form the Seneca River, which flows into the larger Savannah River. Lake water is used to cool Duke Energy's 3 nuclear reactors located at the Oconee Nuclear Generating Station. In addition, the dams help generate hydroelectric power. The Keowee Hydro Station generates 158 megawatts from the lake's outflows. Lake Keowee has provided a recreational destination for fishing, boating, swimming, sailing, kayaking, and other water sports. The lake has been described as having pure and clean water. The name Keowee is a Cherokee word. It is roughly translated as place of the mulberries. The historic town of Keowee had been located on the bank of the Keowee River and was the largest of the 7 Cherokee lower towns in the colonial period in what became the state of South Carolina. Both the town and the former Keowee River were inundated by the formation of Lake Keowee. Archaeological excavations conducted in advance of the project by the University of South Carolina recovered thousands of artifacts, as well as evidence of human and animal remains. There was a traditional burial ground at the town. Lake Wylie is a reservoir or man-made lake in the U.S. states of South Carolina and North Carolina. The lake has a surface area of 13,400 acres, 54 square kilometers, 20.9 square miles, 54 square kilometers, and features 325 miles, 523 kilometers of shoreline. Lake Wateree is a 21 square mile, 50 square kilometers reservoir in Kershaw, Fairfield, and Lancaster counties, South Carolina, in the United States. Developed in 1919 by the damming of the Wateree River, it is one of South Carolina's oldest man-made lakes. It has 181 miles, 291 kilometers of shoreline and includes Lake Wateree State Park, a bird refuge, and Shaw Air Force Base Recreation Center. It was named after the river, and both were named for the Wateree Native Americans, an historic tribe who lived in the area before they became extinct as a tribe after European warfare and encroachment, and their descendants merged with the Catawba people. Lake Greenwood was formed by a hydroelectric dam built across the Saluda River near Chapels, SC. The impoundment was licensed by the Federal Power Commission, predecessor to the current Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, FERC, as the Buzzards Roost Project. The project was relicensed by FERC in 1995. The FERC project known as P1267. The lake has 212 miles, 341 kilometers of shoreline and Gamture, 11,400 acres, 46 square kilometers. While the waters of Lake Greenwood extend into 3 counties, Greenwood, Lawrence, and Newberry counties, Greenwood County actually owns the entire lake bed, having purchased all properties comprising the bed of the lake from farmers along both sides of the rivers in the late 1930s. Funding was provided by loans from the Public Works Administration during the Great Depression. All loans were later repaid in full. The Saluda River, the Reedy River, and Rabun Creek come together to feed Lake Greenwood. There is also a local watershed surrounding the basin from which local rain also drains into the reservoir. Water released from Lake Greenwood feeds into the Saluda River at Chapels, which ultimately feeds into Lake Murray. Because the Buzzards Roost project was formed to provide hydroelectric power to the local area, in direct competition with Duke Power Company, and at significantly lower rates, Duke Power vigorously challenged the project on various legal grounds. Earthquakes. Main article: List of earthquakes in South Carolina. South Carolina is the most seismically active state on the East Coast. Between July 1, 2021 and July 1, 2022, there were 74 recorded earthquakes in South Carolina, 6 of which exceeded a 3 magnitude. In 2021 and 2022, most of which were concentrated in Kershaw County and the coastal area of Charleston. The Charleston area demonstrates the greatest frequency of earthquakes in South Carolina. South Carolina averages 10 to 15 earthquakes a year below magnitude 3, FEMA. The Charleston earthquake of 1886 was the largest quake ever to hit the eastern United States. The 7.0 to 7.3 magnitude earthquake killed 60 people and destroyed much of the city. Faults in this region are difficult to study at the surface due to thick sedimentation on top of them. Many of the ancient faults are within plates rather than long plate boundaries. Climate. A map of the average annual precipitation in South Carolina. South Carolina has a humid subtropical climate called Penn Climate Classification CFA. Although high elevation areas in the upstate area have fewer subtropical characteristics than areas on the Atlantic coastline. In the summer, South Carolina is hot and humid, with daytime temperatures averaging between 86-93 degrees Fahrenheit, 30-34 degrees Celsius in most of the state, and overnight lows averaging 70-75 degrees Fahrenheit, 21-24 degrees Celsius on the coast, and from 66-73 degrees Fahrenheit, 19-23 degrees Celsius. Winter temperatures are much less uniform in South Carolina. Coastal areas of the state have very mild winters, with high temperatures approaching an average of 60 degrees Fahrenheit, 16 degrees Celsius, and overnight lows around 40 degrees Fahrenheit, 5-8 degrees Celsius. A snowplow in South Carolina. The upstate and mountainous region of the state receives the most measurable snowfall. Inland, the average January overnight low is around 32 degrees Fahrenheit, 0 degrees Celsius. In Columbia, and temperatures well below freezing in the upstate. While precipitation is abundant the entire year in almost the entire state, the coast tends to have a slightly wetter summer, while inland, the spring and autumn transitions tend to be the wettest periods and winter the driest season, with November being the driest month. The highest recorded temperature is 113 degrees Fahrenheit, 45 degrees Celsius, in Johnston and Columbia on June 29, 2012, and the lowest recorded temperature is 19 degrees Fahrenheit, 28 degrees Celsius, at Caesars Head on January 21, 1985. Snowfall in South Carolina is minimal in the lower elevation areas south and east of Columbia. It is not uncommon for areas along the southernmost coast to not receive measurable snowfall for several years. In the Piedmont and foothills, especially along and north of Interstate 85, measurable snowfall occurs 1 to 3 times in most years. Annual average total amounts range from 2 to 6 inches. The Blue Ridge Escarpment receives the most average total measurable snowfall. Amounts range from 7 to 12 inches. This is less than some estates further south, and it is slightly less vulnerable to tornadoes than the states which border on the Gulf of Mexico. Some notable tornadoes have struck South Carolina, and the state averages around 14 tornadoes annually. Hail is common with many of the thunderstorms in the state, as there is often a marked contrast in temperature of warmer ground conditions compared to the cold air aloft. Hurricanes and tropical cyclones. Category 4 Hurricane Hugo in 1989. The state is occasionally affected by tropical cyclones. This is an annual concern during hurricane season, which lasts from June 1st to November 30th. The peak time of vulnerability for the southeast Atlantic coast is from early August to early October. During the Cape Verde hurricane season, Memorable hurricanes to hit South Carolina include Hazel, 1954, Hugo, 1989, and Florence, 2018. Climate change. Köppen climate types in South Carolina, showing a large majority of the state being humid subtropical, with smaller, outlier pockets of an oceanic climate in the Blue Ridge Mountains. Climate change in South Carolina encompasses the effects of climate change, attributed to man-made increases in atmospheric carbon dioxide in the U.S. state of South Carolina. Studies show that South Carolina is among a string of Deep South states that will experience the worst effects of climate change. According to the United States Environmental Protection Agency, South Carolina's climate is changing. Most of the state has warmed by 1/2 to 1 degree Fahrenheit, 300 to 600 meters C, in the last century, and the sea is rising about 1 to 1.5 inches, 2.5 to 3.8 centimeters. Higher water levels are eroding beaches, submerging lowlands, and exacerbating coastal flooding. Like other southeastern states, South Carolina has warmed less than most of the nation. South Carolina released its Climate, Energy, and Commerce Committee final report in 2008. The report recommends a voluntary economy-wide goal of reducing emissions to 5%, below 1990 levels by 2020. Key policy recommendations in the report include developing renewable portfolio standards, increasing use of local agricultural products, and increasing advanced recycling and composting. Flora and fauna. Further information. List of mammals of South Carolina. South Carolina is home to two dominant ecosystems, the bottomlands, which consist of floodplains and creeks, and the toplands. The floodplains contain large tracts of old and mature second-growth cypress and tupelo forests. The uplands are home to longleaf pine, shortleaf pine, and mixed hardwood forests. The longleaf pine are an important part of South Carolina's coastal ecosystem. They improve soil, water, and air quality while providing a habitat for deer and songbirds. These forests are endangered by logging for agriculture and development. Oysters are a critical part of South Carolina's coastal ecology. They serve a dual function, filtering the water and forming reefs that provide a habitat for small fish and crabs. Oysters are imperiled by overharvesting because young oysters need older oysters to latch on to as they age. South Carolina is home to many shorebirds, including various sandpipers and ibises. The state serves as a stopover site for birds migrating farther south and a wintering ground for birds that do not fly as far south. Religion. Religious self-identification, per Public Religion Research Institute's 2022 American Values Survey. Protestantism 64%, unaffiliated 20%, Catholicism 11%, New Age 3%, Jehovah's Witness 1%, Judaism 1%. According to the Association of Religion Data Archives, ARDA, in 2010, the largest religion is Christianity, of which the largest denominations were the Southern Baptist Convention with 913,763 adherents, the United Methodist Church with 274,111 adherents, and the Roman Catholic Church with 181,743 adherents. Fourth largest is the African Methodist Episcopal Church with 564 congregations and 121,000 members, and fifth largest is the Apostolic Eclesiastic Presbyterian Church, USA, with 320 congregations and almost 100,000 members. As of 2010, South Carolina was the American state with the highest per capita proportion of citizens who followed the Baha'i faith, with 17,559 adherents, making Baha'i the second largest religion in the state at the time, 100. According to the Public Religion Research Institute in 2020, Christianity remained the largest religion at approximately 74% of the population, 101. Among the Christian population, evangelical Protestantism remained the majority. The irreligious community was 18% of the total population. Per ARDA's 2020 religion census, Southern Baptists remain the majority with 816,405 adherents. and Roman Catholics had 407,840 adherents, followed by United Methodists at 242,467. As other Baptist denominations had from 10 to 40,000 members individually, non-denominational interdenominational Protestants increased to 454,063 adherents, 102. Outside of Christianity, RDA's 2020 study reported 6,677 Muslims in the state and 830 Orthodox Jews. Reform Judaism consisted of 3,430 adherents. Altogether, Hinduism had 8,383 adherents, 102. In 2022, the Public Religion Research Institute estimated that Christians increased to 76% of the population, 64% Protestant, 11% Catholic, and 1% Jehovah's Witness. The unaffiliated also increased, forming 20% of the state's population. Although New Agers constituted 3% of the state, Judaism was 1% of the total population. Economy? See also, Economy of South Carolina and South Carolina locations by per capita income. In 2019, South Carolina's GDP was $249.9 billion, making the state the 26th largest by GDP in the United States, 103. According to the U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis, South Carolina's gross state product, GSP, was $97 billion in 1997 and $153 billion in 2007. Its per capita real gross domestic product, GDP, in chain $2,000 was $26,772 in 1997 and $28,894 in 2007. Which represented 85% of the $31,619 per capita real GDP for the United States overall in 1997, and 76% of the $38,020 for the U.S. in the state debt in 2012 was calculated by one source to be $22.9 billion or $7,800 per taxpayer, 104. Industrial outputs include textile goods, chemical products, paper products, machinery, automobiles, automotive products, and tourism. Major agricultural outputs of the state are tobacco, poultry, cotton, cattle, dairy products, soybeans, hay, rice, and swine, 105, 106. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, as of March 2012, South Carolina had 1,852,700 non-farm jobs, of which 12% are in manufacturing, 11.5% are in leisure and hospitality, 19% are in trade, transportation, and utilities, and 11.8% are in education and health services. The service sector accounts for 83.7% of the South Carolina economy, 107. Many large corporations have moved their locations to South Carolina. Boeing opened an aircraft manufacturing facility at Charleston International Airport in 2011, which serves as one of two final assembly sites for the 787 Dreamliner. South Carolina is a right-to-work state, 108, and many businesses use staffing agencies to temporarily fill positions, 109. Domter, in Rock Hill, used to be the only Fortune 500 company headquartered in South Carolina, but it was later moved into the Fortune 1000 list, 110, 111. The three Fortune 1000 companies headquartered in the state are Domter, Sunoco Products, and ScanSource, 111. South Carolina also benefits from foreign investment. There are 1,950 foreign-owned firms operating in South Carolina, employing almost 135,000 people. 112. Foreign direct investment, FDI, brought $1.06 billion to the state economy in 2010, 113. Since 1994, BMW has had a production facility in Spartanburg County near Greer, and since 1996 the Zapp Group operates in Somerville. The state has the fourth largest state-maintained highway system in the country, consisting of 11 interstates, numbered highways, state highways, and secondary roads, totaling approximately 41,500 miles, 66,800 kilometers, 114. On secondary roads, South Carolina uses a numbering system to keep track of all non-interstate and primary highways that the South Carolina Department of Transportation maintains. Secondary roads are numbered by the number of the county, followed by a unique number for the particular road. A state highway, state road, or state route, and the equivalent provincial highway, provincial road, or provincial route, is usually a road that is either numbered or maintained by a subnational state or province. A road numbered by a state or province falls below numbered national highways, Canada being a notable exception to this rule. In the hierarchy, route numbers are used to aid navigation and may or may not indicate ownership or maintenance. Roads maintained by a state or province include both nationally numbered highways and unnumbered state highways. Depending on the state, state highway may be used for one meaning and state road or state route for the other. In some countries such as New Zealand, the word state is used in its sense of a sovereign state or country. By this meaning, a state highway is a road maintained and numbered by the national government rather than local authorities. The South Carolina Department of Transportation, SCDOT, is a government agency in the U.S. state of South Carolina. Its mission is to build and maintain roads and bridges and administer mass transit services. By state law, the SCDOT's function and purpose is the systematic planning, construction, maintenance, and operation of the state highway system and the development of a statewide mass transit system that is consistent with the needs and desires of the public. The SCDOT also coordinates all state and federal programs relating to highways. The goal of the SCDOT is to provide adequate, safe, and efficient transportation services for the movement of people and goods. Major highways. Main articles: South Carolina State Highway System, list of interstate highways in South Carolina, list of U.S. highways in South Carolina, and list of state highways in South Carolina. The South Carolina State Highway System is the fourth largest state-maintained system of state highways in the country. It consists of interstates, U.S. highways, state highways, and secondary roads, totaling approximately 41,500 miles, 66,800 kilometers. There are 11 interstate highways, 5 primary and 6 auxiliary, that exist entirely or partially in the U.S. state of South Carolina. As of December 31, 2013, the state had a total of 850.80 miles, 1,369.23 kilometers of interstate, and 11.80 miles, 18.99 kilometers of interstate business, all maintained by the South Carolina Department of Transportation, SCDOT. There are 23 U.S. highways that exist entirely or partially in the U.S. state of South Carolina. In South Carolina, all use highways are maintained by the South Carolina Department of Transportation, SCDOT. This is a list of state highways in South Carolina. These state highways are owned and maintained by the U.S. state of South Carolina through the South Carolina Department of Transportation, SCDOT. Rail. CSX Transportation and Norfolk Southern are the only Class 1 railroad companies in South Carolina, as other freight companies in the state are short lines. Amtrak operates 4 passenger routes in South Carolina: the Crescent, the Palmetto, the Silver Meteor, and the Silver Star. The Crescent route serves the upstate cities, the Silver Star serves the Midland cities, and the Palmetto and Silver Meteor routes serve the Low Country cities. CSX Transportation, reporting mark CSXT, known colloquially as simply CSX, is a Class I freight railroad company operating in the eastern United States and the Canadian provinces of Ontario and Quebec. Operating about 21,000 route miles, 34,000 kilometers of track, it is the leading subsidiary of CSX Corporation, a Fortune 500 company headquartered in Jacksonville, Florida. CSX Corporation was formed in 1980 from the merger of Chessie System and Seaboard Coastline Industries. two holding companies that control railroads operating in the eastern United States. Initially only a holding company, the subsidiaries that made up CSX Corporation completed merging in 1987. CSX Transportation formally came into existence in 1986 as the successor of Seaboard System Railroad. In 1999, CSX Transportation acquired about half of Conrail in a joint purchase with competitor Norfolk Southern Railway. In 2022, it acquired Pan Am Railways, extending its reach into northern New England. Norfolk Southern remains CSX's chief competitor. The two share a duopoly on transcontinental freight rail lines in the east half of the U.S. The Norfolk Southern Railway, reporting Mark NS, is a Class I freight railroad operating in the eastern United States. Headquartered in Atlanta, the company was formed in 1982 with the merger of the Norfolk and Western Railway and Southern Railway. The company operates 19,420 route miles, 31,250 kilometers in 22 eastern states, the District of Columbia, and has rights in Canada over the Albany to Montreal route of the Canadian Pacific Kansas City. Norfolk Southern Railway is the leading subsidiary of the Norfolk Southern Corporation. Norfolk Southern maintains 28,400 miles of track, with the rest managed by other parties through trackage rights. Intermodal containers and trailers are the most common commodity type carried by NS, which have grown as the coal business has declined throughout the 21st century. Coal was formerly the largest traffic source. The railway offers the largest intermodal rail network in eastern North America. NS was also the pioneer of road railer service. Norfolk Southern and its chief competitor, CSX Transportation, have a duopoly on the transcontinental freight rail lines in the eastern United States. Norfolk Southern is the namesake and leading subsidiary of the Norfolk Southern Corporation, based in Atlanta, Georgia. It was headquartered in Norfolk, Virginia, until 2021. Norfolk Southern Corporation was incorporated in Virginia on July 23, 1980, and is publicly traded on the New York Stock Exchange, NYSE, under the symbol NSC. The primary business function of Norfolk Southern Corporation is the rail transportation of raw materials, intermediate products, and finished goods across the Southeast, East, and Midwest United States. The corporation further facilitates transport to the remainder of the United States through interchange with other rail carriers, while also serving overseas transport needs by serving several Atlantic and Gulf Coast ports. As of February 2024, Norfolk Southern Corporation's total public stock value is $57.869. It operates intercity rail service in 46 of the 48 contiguous U.S. states and 3 Canadian provinces. Amtrak is a portmanteau of the words America and track. Founded in 1971 as a quasi-public corporation to operate many U.S. passenger rail routes, Amtrak receives a combination of state and federal subsidies, but is managed as a for-profit organization. The company's headquarters is located 1 block west of Union Station in Washington, D.C. Amtrak is headed by a board of directors, 2 of whom are the Secretary of Transportation and Chief Executive Officer, CEO of Amtrak, while the other 8 members are nominated to serve a term of 5 years. Amtrak's network includes over 500 stations along 21,400 miles, 34,000 kilometers of track. It directly owns approximately 623 miles, 1,003 kilometers of this track, and operates an additional 132 miles of track. The remaining mileage is over rail lines owned by other railroad companies. While most track speeds are limited to 79 miles per hour, 127 kilometers per hour or less, several lines have been upgraded to support top speeds of 110 miles per hour, 180 kilometers per hour, and parts of the Northeast Corridor support top speeds of 160 miles per hour, 260 kilometers per hour. In fiscal year 2022, Amtrak served 22.9 million passengers and had $2.1 billion in revenue, with more than 17,100 employees as of fiscal year 2021. Nearly 87,000 passengers ride more than 300 Amtrak trains daily. Nearly two-thirds of passengers come from the 10 largest metropolitan areas, and 83% of passengers travel on routes shorter than 400 miles, 645 kilometers. The Crescent is a daily long-distance passenger train operated by Amtrak between New York City and New Orleans, the Crescent City. The 1,377-mile, 2,216 kilometers route connects the Northeast to the Gulf Coast via the Appalachian Piedmont, with major stops in Charlotte, North Carolina, Atlanta, Georgia, and Birmingham, Alabama. Most of the route of the Crescent is on the Norfolk Southern Railway. It is the successor of the Southern Crescent, introduced in 1970 by Norfolk Southern's predecessor, the Southern Railway. The Silver Meteor is a long-distance passenger train operated by Amtrak between New York City and Miami, Florida. The train was transferred to Amtrak when it took over inner-city passenger rail service in 1971. The train was part of Amtrak's Silver Service brand, along with its former sister train, the Silver Star, Sal's other former flagship streamliner. The two trains were the remnants of the numerous long-distance trains that operated between New York and Florida for most of the 20th century. On November 10, 2024, Amtrak temporarily combined the Capital Limited and Silver Star, producing the Chicago-Washington-Miami route, the Floridian, leaving the Silver Meteor as the only remaining New York-Florida passenger train. During fiscal year 2024, the Silver Meteor carried 298,328 passengers, an increase of 5.1% from FY 2023. The Silver Star is a temporarily discontinued long-distance passenger train operated by Amtrak on a 1,522-mile, 2,449 kilometers route between New York City and Miami via Washington, D.C., Richmond, Virginia, Raleigh, North Carolina, Columbia, South Carolina, Savannah, Georgia, Jacksonville, Florida, and Tampa, Florida. The Silver Star and its sister train in the Silver Service brand, the Silver Meteor, are the descendants of numerous long-distance trains that operated between Florida and New York for most of the 20th century. On November 10, 2024, Amtrak temporarily combined the Capital Limited and Silver Star, producing a Chicago-Washington-Miami route, the Floridian. During fiscal year 2023, the Silver Star carried 351,732 passengers, a decrease of 19.1% from FY 2022. In November 2023, the train had a total revenue of $8.7 million. Major and regional airports. Main article: List of airports in South Carolina. There are 7 significant airports in South Carolina, all of which act as regional airport hubs. The busiest by passenger volume is Charleston International Airport, 115. Just across the border in North Carolina is Charlotte Douglas International Airport, the 30th busiest airport in the world in terms of passengers, 116. Columbia Metropolitan Airport, IATA, CICAO, KCAE, KCAE, FAA LID, is the main KMR for Columbia and the Midlands region of South Carolina, United States. The airport is a regional cargo hub for UPS Airlines. The airport is operated by the Charleston County Aviation Authority under a joint use agreement with Joint Base Charleston. It is South Carolina's busiest airport. In 2023, the airport served over 6.1 million passengers in its busiest year on record. The airport is located in North Charleston and is approximately 12 miles, 19 kilometers northwest of downtown Charleston. The airport is the third busiest airport in South Carolina, after Charleston International Airport and Myrtle Beach International Airport, with over 2.56 million passengers in 2023. The Federal Aviation Administration, FAA National Plan of Integrated Airport Systems for 2017-2021, categorized it as a small hub primary commercial service facility. Myrtle Beach International Airport, IATMYRICAO, KMYRFA LID. MY is a county-owned public-use airport, IATAOSMILL. It is located 3 miles, 5 kilometers southwest of the Central Business District of Myrtle Beach, in Horry County, South Carolina, United States. It was formerly known as Myrtle Beach Jetport 1974 to 1989, and it is located on the site of the former Myrtle Beach Air Force Base, which also includes the Market Common Shopping Complex. The Federal Aviation Administration, FAA National Plan of Integrated Airport Systems for 2017-2021, categorized it as a small hub primary commercial service facility. Myrtle Beach has the second busiest airport in South Carolina behind Charleston, with over 2.4 million passengers arriving and departing in 2018. The airport's official website since 2006 is flymyrtlebeach.com, which was previously an unofficial website owned by an airport employee. In July 2012, the airport launched a redesigned website with a new logo. Hilton Head Airport, IATHHICAOKHXD, FAA LID, HXD, is on Hilton Head Island in Beaufort County, United States, also known as Hilton Head Island Airport. It is owned by Beaufort County. In the spring of 2019, United Airlines began seasonal service to its hubs at Chicago O'Hare, Newark, and Washington Dulles. And American Airlines added seasonal service to its Washington National Hub to its existing service to Charlotte. Growth continued in May 2019, when Delta Airlines resumed year-round service to its hub in Atlanta, as well as adding a new seasonal route to New York LaGuardia. All these flights are operated by regional affiliates. One public charter airline operates limited service. It is the only airport on Hilton Head Island. The National Plan of Integrated Airport Systems for 2017 to 2021 categorized it as a primary commercial service airport. U.S. DOT records say the airport had 56,330 passengers in calendar year 2017. Many U.S. airports use the same 3-letter location identifier for the FAA, but this airport is HD to the FAAT to the IAT. The IAT code HH is used for airline booking. Rock Hill, York County Airport, IATA RKH, ICAO, CUSA, FAA LID. USA E is a general aviation and reliever airport of Charlotte Douglas International Airport, located 5 miles, 7 kilometers from the Central Business District of Rock Hill in York County, South Carolina, United States. It is owned and operated by the city of Rock Hill, but York County is also represented on the Airport Commission. Although most U.S. airports use the same 3-letter location identifier for the FAATA, Rock Hill York County Airport is assigned UZA by the FAA and RKATA by the IATA. Education. Main article, Education in South Carolina. South Carolina has 1,167 K-12 schools in 79 school districts with an enrollment of 751,660. As of 2022, 117. In 2022, South Carolina spent $11,747 per public school student, 118. In 2023, the average SAT score in South Carolina was 1028, in line with the national average, 119. South Carolina does not currently implement Common Core in schools, having repealed the standards in 2014, 120. In 2014, the South Carolina Supreme Court ruled the state had failed to provide a minimally adequate education to children in all parts of the state as required by the state's constitution, 121. South Carolina is the only state which owns and operates a statewide school bus system. As of December 2016, the state maintains a 5,582 bus fleet, with the average vehicle in service being 15 years old. The national average is 6, having logged 236,000 miles, 122, Half of the state's school buses are more than 15 years old, and some are reportedly up to 30 years old. In 2017, in the budget proposal, Superintendent of Education Molly Spearman requested the state lease to purchase 1,000 buses to replace the most decrepit vehicles. An additional 175 buses could be purchased immediately through the state treasurer's master lease program, 123. On January 5, 2017, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency awarded South Carolina more than $1.1 million to replace 57 school buses with new cleaner models through its Diesel Emissions Reduction Act program. Higher education. Further information. List of colleges and universities in South Carolina and University of South Carolina system. South Carolina has diverse institutions from large state-funded research universities to small colleges that cultivate a liberal arts, religious, or military tradition. The College of Charleston, founded in 1770 and chartered in 1785, is the oldest institution of higher learning in South Carolina, the 13th oldest in the United States, and the first municipal college in the country. The college is in company with the colonial colleges as one of the original and foundational institutions of higher education in the United States. Its founders include 3 signers of the United States Declaration of Independence and 3 signers of the United States Constitution. The college's historic campus, listed on the U.S. Department of the Interior's National Register of Historic Places, forms an integral part of Charleston's colonial-era urban center. The graduate school of the College of Charleston offers a number of degree programs and coordinates support for its nationally recognized faculty research efforts. The University of South Carolina in Columbia is a flagship public coeducational research university with 7 satellite campuses. It was founded in 1801 as South Carolina College, and its original campus, the Horseshoe, is listed on the National Register of Historic Places. The university's main campus covers over 359 acres, 1.5 square kilometers, in the urban core less than 1 city block from the South Carolina State House. The University of South Carolina has around 35,000 students on the Columbia campus. Furman University Bell Tower near Greenville. Furman University is a private, coeducational, non-sectarian, liberal arts university in Greenville. Founded in 1826, Furman enrolls approximately 2,900 undergraduate and 500 graduate students. Furman is the largest private institution in South Carolina. The university is primarily focused on undergraduate education. Only 2 departments, education and chemistry, offer graduate degrees. Erskine College is a private, coeducational liberal arts college in Due West, South Carolina. The college was founded in 1839 and is affiliated with the Associate Reformed Presbyterian Church, which maintains a theological seminary on the campus. The Citadel, the Military College of South Carolina, is a state-supported comprehensive college in Charleston. Founded in 1842, it is best known for its undergraduate Corps of Cadets military program for men and women, which combines academics, physical challenges, and military discipline. In addition to the cadet program, the Citadel Graduate College offers evening certificate, undergraduate, and graduate programs to civilians. The Citadel has 2,200 undergraduate cadets in its residential military program and 1,200 civilian students in the evening programs. Wofford College is a small liberal arts college in Spartanburg. Wofford was founded in 1854 with a bequest of $100,000 from the Rev. Benjamin Wofford 178-01850, a Methodist minister and Spartanburg native who sought to create a college for literary, classical, and scientific education in my native district of Spartanburg. It is one of the few 4-year institutions in the southeastern United States founded before the American Civil War that operates on its original campus. Newberry College is a small liberal arts college in Newberry. Founded in 1856, Newberry is a co-educational, private liberal arts college of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, ELCA, on a historic 90-acre 36 hectares campus in Newberry, South Carolina. It has roughly 1,110 students and a 14-to-1 student-teacher ratio. According to U.S. News and World Report's America's Best Colleges, Newberry College ranks among the nation's top colleges in the southern region. Claflin University, founded in 1869 by the American Missionary Association, is the oldest historically black college in the state. After the Democratic-dominated legislature closed the university in 1877, before passing a law to restrict admission to whites, it designated Claflin as the only state college for blacks. Lander University is a public liberal arts university in Greenwood. Lander was founded in 1872 as Williamston Female College, 125. The school moved to Greenwood in 1904 and was renamed Lander College in honor of its founder, Samuel Lander. In 1973, Lander became part of the state's higher education system and is now a co-educational institution. The university is focused on undergraduate education and enrolls approximately 3,000 undergraduates. Presbyterian College, PC, is a private liberal arts college founded in 1880 in Clinton. In 2007, Washington Monthly ranked PC as the #1 liberal arts college in the nation, 126. Winthrop University, founded in 1886 as an all-female teaching school in Rock Hill, became a co-ed institution in 1974. The Richard W. Riley College of Education is still the school's most well-known area of study. Clemson University, founded in 1889, is a public, co-educational, land-grant research university in Clemson. It has more than 19,000 undergraduate students and 5,200 graduate students from all 50 states and from more than 70 countries. Clemson is also the home to the South Carolina Botanical Garden. North Greenville University, founded in 1891, is a comprehensive university in Tigerville. It is affiliated with South Carolina Baptist Convention and the Southern Baptist Convention, and is accredited by the Commission on Colleges of the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools. It has an enrollment of around 2,500 undergraduates. South Carolina State University, founded in 1896, is a historically black university in Orangeburg. SCSU has an enrollment of nearly 5,000 and offers undergraduate, graduate, and postgraduate degrees. SCSU boasts the only Doctor of Education program in the state. Anderson University, founded in 1911, is a selective comprehensive university that offers bachelor's and master's degrees. It enrolls about 2,900 students. Webster University, founded in 1915 in St. Louis, Mo, with 5 extended campuses in SC, offers undergraduate and graduate degrees. Bob Jones University, founded in 1927, is a private, non-denominational and conservative Christian liberal arts university with a 2019 total enrollment of 3,000. BJU offers more than 60 undergraduate majors and 70 graduate programs. 127. 128. Coastal Carolina University, founded in 1954, became an independent state-supported liberal arts university in 1993. The university enrolls approximately 10,500 students on its 307-acre 1.24 square kilometers campus in Conway, part of the Myrtle Beach metropolitan area. Baccalaureate programs are offered in 51 major fields of study, along with graduate programs in education, business administration, MBA, and coastal marine and wetland studies. Charleston Southern University, founded in 1969, is a liberal arts university and is affiliated with the South Carolina Baptist Convention. Charleston Southern, CSU, is on 300 acres, formerly the site of a rice and indigo plantation, in the city of North Charleston, one of South Carolina's largest accredited independent universities, enrolling approximately 3,400 students. Francis Marion University, formerly Francis Marion College, is a state-supported liberal arts university near Florence, South Carolina. It was founded in 1970 and achieved university status in 1992. Healthcare. For overall healthcare, South Carolina is ranked 37 out of the 50 states in 2022, According to the Commonwealth Fund, a private health foundation working to improve the healthcare system. 129. The state's teen birth rate was 53 births per 1,000 teens, compared to the national average of 41.9 births, according to the Kaiser Family Foundation. 130. The state's infant mortality rate was 9.4 deaths per 1,000 births, compared to the national average of 6.9 deaths. 131. There were 2.6 physicians per 1,000 people, compared to the national average of 3.2 physicians. 132. There was $5,114 spent on health expenses per capita in the state, compared to the national average of $5,283. 133. There were 26% of children and 13% of elderly living in poverty in the state, compared to 23% and 13% respectively, doing so in the U.S. 134. There were 34% of children that were overweight or obese, compared to the national average of 32%. 135. Media. See also, list of newspapers in South Carolina and category, mass media in South Carolina. There are 36 TV stations, including PBS affiliates, serving South Carolina with terrestrial and some online streaming access. Markets in which the stations are located include Columbia, Florence, Allendale, Myrtle Beach, Greenville, Charleston, Conway, Beaufort, Hardeeville, Spartanburg, Greenwood, Anderson, and Sumter. There are multiple news companies in South Carolina. Some major ones are the Charleston Chronicle, Greenville News, the Post and Courier, the State, and the Sun News. The Charleston Chronicle was a weekly newspaper serving the African American and Black communities in Charleston, South Carolina. The paper was founded in 1971 by James J. French, and it ceased publication shortly after his death in 2021. The paper was a member of the National Newspaper Publishers Association, NMPA, a trade group of more than 200 Black-owned media companies in the United States. Its estimated circulation is 6,000 copies in 2020. Damian Smalls was the paper's editor, and Tolbert Smalls was the publisher as of 2018. The Greenville News is a daily morning newspaper published in Greenville, South Carolina. After the State and Columbia and Charleston's The Post and Courier, it is the third largest paper in South Carolina. The Post and Courier is the main daily newspaper in Charleston, South Carolina. It traces its ancestry to three newspapers: the Charleston Courier, founded in 1803, the Charleston Daily News, founded in 1865, and the Evening Post, founded in 1894. Through the Courier, it brands itself as the oldest daily newspaper in the South and one of the oldest continuously operating newspapers in the United States. It is the flagship newspaper of Evening Post Industries, which in turn is owned by the Manigault family of Charleston, descendants of Peter Manigault. It is the largest newspaper in South Carolina, followed by Columbia's The State and the Greenville News. It has newsrooms across the state in Greenville, Columbia, Spartanburg, Myrtle Beach, Hilton Head Island, and more. The State is an American newspaper published in Columbia, South Carolina. The newspaper is owned and distributed by the McClatchy Company in the Midlands region of the state. It is by circulation the second largest newspaper in South Carolina after the Post and Courier. The Sun News is a daily newspaper published in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, in the United States. It serves the Grand Strand region of South Carolina. Government and Politics. Main article: South Carolina Government and Politics. See also, Political party strength in South Carolina. 2024 U.S. presidential election results by county in South Carolina. Democratic. Republican. South Carolina state government consists of executive, legislative, and judicial branches. The governor of South Carolina heads the executive branch. The South Carolina General Assembly heads the legislative branch. And the South Carolina Supreme Court heads the judicial branch. South Carolina is a largely conservative state. Since the Declaration of Independence, South Carolina's politics have been controlled by three main parties: the Democratic-Republican Party in the early 1800s, the Democratic Party through most of the 19th and 20th centuries, and the Republican Party in the 21st century. Since the mid-1990s, the South Carolina General Assembly has been controlled by the Republican Party, and currently, 8 of 9 statewide offices are held by Republican office holders and 1 by a Democratic office holder, 136-137. At the federal level, South Carolina has voted Republican in every presidential election since the 1980 election of Ronald Reagan won. The last Democratic candidate to carry the state was Jimmy Carter in 1976. Both of South Carolina's senators are Republican. South Carolina has 7 representatives in the United States House of Representatives, 6 of whom are Republican. South Carolina State House. As of November 8, 2022, there were 3,740,743 registered voters. In a 2020 study, South Carolina was ranked by the Election Law Journal as the 7th hardest state for citizens to vote in 140. South Carolina retains the death penalty. Culture. See also, South Carolina literature. South Carolina has many venues for visual and performing arts. The Gibbs Museum of Art in Charleston, the Greenville County Museum of Art, the Columbia Museum of Art, Spartanburg Art Museum, and the South Carolina State Museum in Columbia, among others, provide access to visual arts to the state. There are also numerous historic sites and museums scattered throughout the state, paying homage to many events and periods in the state's history from Native American habitation to the present day. South Carolina also has performing art venues, including the Peace Center in Greenville, the Coker Center for the Arts in Columbia, and the Newberry Opera House, among others, to bring local, national, and international talent to the stages of South Carolina. Several large venues can house major events, including Colonial Life Arena in Columbia, Bon Secours Wellness Arena in Greenville, and North Charleston Coliseum. One of the nation's major performing arts festivals, Spoleto Festival US, is held annually in Charleston. There are also countless local festivals throughout the state highlighting many cultural traditions, historical events, and folklore. According to the South Carolina Arts Commission, creative industries generate $9.2 billion annually and support over 78,000 jobs in the state, 143. A 2009 statewide poll by the University of South Carolina Institute for Public Service and Policy Research found that 67% of residents have participated in the arts in some form during the past year, and on average, citizens have participated in the arts 14 times in the previous year. Sports. Main article. Sports in South Carolina. Although no major league professional sports teams are based in South Carolina, the Carolina Panthers have training facilities in the state and played their inaugural season's home games at Clemson's Memorial Stadium in 1995. They now play at Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte, North Carolina. The Panthers consider themselves the Carolinas team and refrain from naming themselves after Charlotte or either of the Carolinas. The state is also home to numerous minor league professional teams. College teams represent their particular South Carolina institutions and are the primary options for football, basketball, and baseball attendance in the state. South Carolina is also a top destination for golf and water sports. South Carolina is also home to one of NASCAR's first tracks and its first paved speedway, Darlington Raceway, located northwest of Florence. The Carolina Panthers are a professional American football team based in Charlotte, North Carolina. The Panthers compete in the National Football League, NFL, as a member of the National Football Conference, NFC, South Division. The team is headquartered in Bank of America Stadium in Uptown Charlotte, which also serves as the team's home field. The Panthers are supported throughout the Carolinas. Although the team has played its home games in Charlotte since 1996, it played its home games at Memorial Stadium in Clemson, South Carolina, during its first season in 1995. The Panthers were announced as the league's 29th franchise in 1993 and began play in 1995 under Founding owner Jerry Richardson. The Panthers played well in their first 2 years, finishing 7-9 in 1995, an all-time best record for an NFL expansion team's first season, and 12-4 the following year, winning the NFC West before ultimately losing to the eventual Super Bowl champion Green Bay Packers in the NFC Championship game. They did not have another winning season until 2003, when they won the NFC Championship game and reached Super Bowl 38, losing 32-29 to the New England Patriots. After recording playoff appearances in 2005 and 2008, the team failed to make another playoff appearance until 2013, the first of 3 consecutive NFC South titles. After losing in the divisional round to the San Francisco 49ers in 2013 and the Seattle Seahawks in 2014, the Panthers returned to the Super Bowl in 2015 but lost to the Denver Broncos. Since then, the team has appeared in the playoffs only once, in 2017. The team's 5 NFC South titles since the division's establishment in 2002 ranks second only to the New Orleans Saints. The franchise is legally registered as Panther Football, LLC, and is controlled by David Tepper, whose purchase of the team from founder Jerry Richardson was unanimously approved by league owners on May 22, 2018. The club, which Forbes valued at approximately $2.3 billion United States dollars in 2018, is estimated at $4.1 billion by in 2023. Frank Howard Field at Memorial Stadium, known as Death Valley, is an outdoor stadium on the campus of Clemson University in Clemson, South Carolina. It is home to the Clemson Tigers football team of the Atlantic Coast Conference, ACC. Built between 1941 to 1942, the stadium was originally named Memorial Stadium in memory of all Clemson men who have made the supreme sacrifice for their country. In 1974, when legendary, longtime head coach and athletic director Frank Howard retired from the university, it was announced that the playing surface would be named in his honor. The stadium has seen expansions throughout the years, with the most recent being the West Zone, with Phase 1 construction beginning in 2004 and completing in 2015 with the addition of the Oculus, the final piece of Phase 3. Phase 1 of the East Zone project began in 2020. Prior to the completion of Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte, Memorial Stadium served as the home venue for the National Football League, NFL, as Carolina Panthers during the team's inaugural 1995 season. Currently, the stadium is the largest in the ACC. Bank of America Stadium is a 74,867-seat multi-purpose stadium located on 33 acres, 13 hectares, in the uptown section of Charlotte, North Carolina, United States. It is the home facility and headquarters of the Carolina Panthers of the National Football League, NFL, and Charlotte FC of Major League Soccer, MLS. The stadium opened in 1996 as Ericsson Stadium, with Swedish telecom company LM Ericsson initially holding the naming rights. In 2004, Charlotte-based financial services company Bank of America purchased the naming rights under a 20 to 25-year agreement at $140 million. Former Panthers president Danny Morrison called it a classic American stadium due to its bold design and other features. In addition to the Panthers and CLTFC, the stadium hosts the annual Duke's Mayo Bowl, which features teams from the Atlantic Coast Conference, ACC, and either the Southeastern Conference, SEC, or the Big Ten Conference. The stadium was planned to host the annual ACC championship game through at least 2019. The game was moved in 2016 but reinstated in 2017. The ACC announced on May 19, 2022, that Bank of America Stadium will continue to host the championship through at least the 2030 season. The largest crowd to ever attend a football game at the stadium was on September 9, 2018, when 74,532 people watched the Panthers defeat the Dallas Cowboys 16-8. Charlotte, say Charlotte, is the most populous city in the U.S. state of North Carolina and the county seat of Mecklenburg County. The population was 874,579 at the 2020 census, making Charlotte the 15th most populous city in the United States, the 7th most populous city in the South, and the 2nd most populous city in the Southeast behind Jacksonville, Florida. Charlotte is the cultural, economic, and transportation center of the Charlotte metropolitan area, whose estimated 2023 population of 2,805,115 ranked 22nd in the United States. The Charlotte metropolitan area is part of an 18-county, market region, and combined statistical area with an estimated population of 3,387,115 as of 2023. Between 2004 and 2014, Charlotte was among the country's fastest-growing metropolitan areas, with 888,000 new residents. Based on U.S. Census data from 2005 to 2015, Charlotte tops the U.S. in millennial population growth. Throughout the 2020s, it has remained one of the fastest-growing major cities in the United States. Residents of Charlotte are referred to as Charlotteans. Charlotte is home to the corporate headquarters of Bank of America, Honeywell, Truist Financial, and the East Coast headquarters of Wells Fargo, which, when combined with other Charlotte-based financial institutions, makes the city the 2nd largest banking center in the nation. Charlotte's notable attractions include 3 professional sports teams: the Carolina Panthers of the NFL, the Charlotte Hornets of the NBA, and Charlotte FC of MLS. The city is also home to the NASCAR Hall of Fame, Opera Carolina, Charlotte Symphony, Charlotte Ballet, Children's Theater of Charlotte, Mint Museum, Harvey B. Gantt Center, Beckler Museum of Modern Art, the Billy Graham Library, Levine Museum of the New South, Charlotte Museum of History, Carowinds Amusement Park, and U.S. National Whitewater Center. Charlotte has a humid subtropical climate. It is located several miles east of the Catawba River and southeast of Lake Norman, the largest human-made lake in North Carolina. Lake Wylie and Mountain Island Lake are 2 smaller human-made lakes located near the city. As of 2024, 66% of the city's area is occupied by green spaces. The city ranks 1st in the United States and 29th in the world in the ranking of the greenest cities on the planet. Darlington Raceway is a 1.366 miles, 2.198 kilometers, egg-shaped oval track in Darlington, South Carolina. The track has hosted a variety of racing events since its inaugural season of racing in 1950, primarily races sanctioned by NASCAR. The venue has a capacity of 47,000 as of 2021. Darlington Raceway is owned by NASCAR and led by track president Josh Harris. Darlington Raceway opened in 1950 under Darlington native Harold Brassington, who sought to replicate the success of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and the Indianapolis 500 in his hometown. Brassington quickly cut all ties with the facility, with Bob Colvin taking over control of the venue as president of the track. Under Colvin's tenure, the speedway underwent major expansion. However, after Colvin died in 1967, all major expansion on the venue came to a halt, with the track's lack of amenities being criticized. After the International Speedway Corporation, ISC, bought out the facility in 1982, the venue underwent further expansion in the 1990s. The track has remained on a staple of the NASCAR Cup Series since its inaugural year despite Darlington's small market and NASCAR's national expansion, with the Southern 500 considered to be one of the most prestigious races on the schedule. College football is the most popular sport. Memorial Stadium and Williams-Brice Stadium are 2 of the 55 largest stadiums in the world. Clemson University and the University of South Carolina are both ranked in the top 27 colleges in the country in athletic revenue. Their rivalry is considered one of the best in college sports, and their annual football game, the Palmetto Bowl, is considered the most important sporting event in the state. There are no major league professional franchises based in South Carolina. However, the state does have numerous minor league and lower division soccer teams. Additionally, the Carolina Panthers and Charlotte FC, Two major league professional teams based in Charlotte, near the South Carolina border, have shown an interest in representing both of the Carolinas. Myrtle Beach is the self-proclaimed golf capital of the world, with around 90 courses. The Grand Strand and Hilton Head areas are both ranked in the top 4 locations in the country in golf courses per capita. The state is also a prime destination for water sports. A government survey from 2000 found that South Carolina had the 7th most surfers of any state in the nation.